Good evening. This is Miss Samah. I'm going to summarize for you Lesson 2, Unit 4. Lesson 2, Impact on Water. During this lesson, we took many ideas. Okay, let's start with the first part of the lesson. The first part of the lesson was about the uses of water and fresh water and salt water, the differences between them. We learned in this part uh, how can human use water by different ways. Let's see together some vocabularies that you have to know, okay, before we start the main ideas. These words that you learned, they are very important to know their meaning. Recreation means an activity done for enjoyment, like swimming, like fishing, like boating. These are recreational activities. Livestock means animals that found on farm, like sheep, cows, goats. Saline means salty, containing salt. Salinity, it's the ability to be saline. Thermoelectric power, it is the electricity that's produced by temperature differences. Aquifers, aquifers, underground layer of rock that contains water. Hydrosphere is the layer or the part of the earth that contains water. Reservoir is a large natural or artificial source of supply. Barrier means something used to prevent movement or access. Okay? Irrigation, it's the supply of water to land or to crops. These are words that are very important during this lesson, and you have to know their meanings. Let's start. As you know, students, as the human population increases, usage of water increases and the need of water is increasing because the number of people is increasing. More people means more water is required. Humans use water in many different ways. Let's see some of these ways, or let's see the ways that a human use water. So water is used by a human for, as you know, for many activities like washing cars, like doing laundry, like agriculture, like recreation, as we said, for enjoyment, like swimming, boating, fishing. These are activities that require water. Transportation, as you know, ships transport goods and transport people within the ocean or within the sea, so water is important for transportation. Household activities like cooking, cleaning, bathing, okay. Industrial activities, manufacturers use water in their industrial activities. And finally, generating electricity. Water is important source for generating electricity. It's so important for generating electricity, and many countries they use water to generate electricity. We'll speak more about this point. For example, if we want to discuss how do humans use water, for example, in United States, if we look at this pie chart, we can see that most water is used by power plants. Power plants means stations that produce electricity. It does not mean plant. No, it means stations. Stations where electricity is produced, okay, by water, okay. Also, if we look at the pie chart, we can see in United States, 31% of water is used for irrigation. Irrigation, it's the process of giving water to the crops, okay, for agriculture. 12% is used for public supply, like household activities, and 4% is used for industry in factories, and the remaining percentage, which is less than 4%, is used for livestock, for mining, for aquaculture, and for other activities. Okay, but as we saw here, the highest percentage in the United States, 49% of water is used for generating electricity by thermoelectric plants or thermoelectric power in power plants. Okay, let's see the picture of the power plant. So we can see here that these stations, they use water. They use also a change in temperature for like generating electricity. Irrigation system, as you see here, these are pipes on the surface of the soil that distribute water for the crops. Now, what if we speak about water on the earth? As you know, as all of you know, that we use and we require fresh water to use it. For cooking, for bathing, for drinking, we use fresh water, not salty water. But do you know that only 3% of the total water on the earth is fresh water? And the other percentage is salt water. So we have 97% of the total water on the earth, on hydrosphere, is salt water. This includes oceans and seas, okay, that have salty water, and fresh water like rivers, like lakes, like underground water, like other surface water, like permanent ice glaciers, ice caps. All these are fresh water. Now let's see together the difference between them. Let's compare between salt water and fresh water. The first difference is fresh water is only 3% of the earth's water, but salt water is 97% of the earth's water. Fresh water is found in aquifers, okay? It's an area under the ground that holds the groundwater, in lakes, in ponds, in streams, and in rivers, while salt water is found in oceans and seas. Fresh water is with low salinity, as we talked at the beginning. Okay, salinity is the amount of salt within the water. It's less than 1%, but salt water, it is with higher salinity, with more than 3.5%. The similarities between them, both are part of the hydrosphere, the part of the earth that's made up of water. Both are part of water cycle. As you know, water cycle includes the first step, evaporation. So water evaporates from seas, which is salt water, and oceans, and also it evaporates from lakes and rivers and other water bodies that have fresh water. Okay, now let's see together how do people also use water. People depend on sources of fresh water for their water supplies. They need fresh water for their activities. Okay, so they need a source of fresh water. Another method to obtain water is through dams, through construction of dams. What do you mean by dams? Let's see together. First, dams, they are constructed across the streams and rivers. So streams and rivers are often dammed to create reservoir. So this area, as you see in the picture, this is the dam that is constructed across within the river, okay? And it ends, or it has reservoir that will store the collected water. So dam, in order to understand the meaning of dam, dam is a not natural thing, no, it's human made. Dam is a barrier constructed to hold back water and to raise its level and forming a reservoir. So dams are constructed on streams, on rivers, to hold the water, to store the water in the reservoir that will be filled with fresh water from the river. Let's see together why do people they construct dams? What are the importance? What are the advantages and the positive impacts of construction of the dams? First of all, as we said, dams store water during rainy season. Okay, so in winter, as you know, there is a lot of rainfall, so water goes or run off with rivers, so extra water will flow with the rivers. This water, instead of run off and flowing randomly and may cause floods, it will be stored within the reservoir of the dam. So the first advantage, the first positive impact is the storage of water during rainy season. And this will control the floods or reduce the risk of floods during winter. Not only this, but also, which is very important uh, uh, point to know, is these dams are constructed. You see these? These dams are constructed to generate electricity. Okay, so dams are very important for generating electricity by the help of water, by the flowing of water. The process is not required now to know in details how do dams produce electricity, but they are important for producing electricity to homes, to schools, and to many places. Also, dams provide recreational area, like people they go and do boating activities, fishing activities there. Also, dams provide water supply. So this water will be used for drink as a drinking water. Also, this water will be taken to farms for irrigation. So this is an important source for drinking water. Now, what are negative impacts? So construction of a dam, it's not only affecting positively on the for a human, but it has some negative impacts on the environment. First of all, you have to know that dams construction is so expensive for governments. It's not an easy thing to build. No, it is so expensive and it takes a long time, maybe many years for construction. Okay, but what are the negative impacts on the environment? Let's see. The first negative impact of dams, it increases the rate of erosion along the banks of streams. So streams, as you know, when water flows within the river, when it reaches the dam, sediments, which are like sandstones, sands, and the small rocks that settles on the bottom of the river, they will not complete with water. They like uh, they stay behind the dam. This will cause water to flow, okay, and to cause erosion along the banks of the streams. Not only this, but also, as you know, there are many aquatic animals live in rivers like fish. These fish, they migrate. Usually fish migrate for reproduction, to reproduce, okay, from one area to another area through the river. But when dams constructed, these fish will not be able, they won't be able to migrate. It's like as a barrier for fish migration. So as a result, these kinds of fish will not reproduce well, and this is affecting on the population of fish or the number of fish. Also, we have another impact, which is it may cause dryness of some rivers before they reach the ocean. So rivers, they when they flow and when dams are constructed across them, this may cause in some rivers to become dry, okay, before they complete and reach the ocean. So this is a negative impact on the environment. It's also may cause loss of habitat for some plants and animals in case of heavy rains. Reservoirs will be filled completely, okay. This may cause flooding across, or sorry, floodings where on the surrounding, yani consider that you have a glass of water and it is full and you are adding more and more water. Water will be released to the surrounding and will float. Same idea in the reservoir here. We have, if the reservoir is full and more water is added during a rainy season, so this will cause flooding to the surrounding and may cause damage of green areas of vegetation or of plants, and this will affect the animals habitat, because as you know, animals, they use trees and other plants as a place to live. Okay, so these are the negative impacts of the dam. That's all about dams, positive impacts, negative impacts. Now we have another part of the lesson, the second part of the lesson. We are going now to speak about, sorry, not this one. We're going now to speak about the groundwater. Okay, okay. Uh, so we have now to speak about groundwater. As you know, a groundwater is the water beneath the surface, the earth's surface. So it is the water that is stored under the ground. Okay. So during this part, we learned the definition of the groundwater. Also, we learned the definition of the aquifer, and we learned how do human activities impact on groundwater. Let's start with some vocabularies in order to be familiar with these vocabularies that are mentioned within this part. Permeable, it means allows water to move within it, okay, or allows liquid and gas to move through it. Water well, as you know, is a structure created in the ground by digging to access groundwater in the underground aquifers. So people, as you know, people, they dig wells, okay, to access, to extract groundwater. So drilling wells means it's a process of making hole in the ground. Why? To reach groundwater, to reach aquifer, and to extract this groundwater for as a freshwater source. Sediment means a matter like sandstone, like gravel, like rocks that settles to the bottom of a liquid. Let's start about groundwater. A groundwater, it's the water beneath Earth's surface, deep, very deep, okay? It's not few meters down, no. Beneath, we have large, long distance down. So it is thousands of meters down. It makes up most of the Earth's fresh water, and it's an important source of water for streams, lakes, and wetlands. You have to know, students, that groundwater, it is stored under the ground during rainy season. So when precipitation comes to the land, water seeps down into the soil thousands of meters and stored as groundwater. This groundwater is used by people, is extracted by people for many uses. Okay? And this groundwater is also, it is a source for streams and lakes and wetlands in summer. So this water will be released, part of it, to rivers and the streams. One more thing that you have to know about the groundwater, the average depth of the groundwater is 3,688 meters under the ground. So it is not only few meters, no. This is the average. So some places, groundwater is deeper than this, maybe can reach 10,000 meters. This is the average depth. Also, girls and boys, you have to know that many plants absorb groundwater from the soil through their long roots. How does this happen? We have the groundwater that is found in an area under the ground thousands meters down. Above this area, there are layers of soil. These layers of soil stay wet, okay? And the plants that have long roots, they can absorb what from the soil layers, the part of the groundwater, okay? So people in many areas of the world, they rely or depend on groundwater for their water supply. They bring groundwater to Earth's surface. How? By drilling wells, as we said. Wells are usually drilled where? Which layer? Which area under the ground? The area is called the aquifer. What is aquifer? Aquifer is an area under the ground that is made up of permeable sediment or rock. As we said, permeable means allow water to or liquid to pass through. Okay, so this area is made up of permeable rocks or sediments like sandstones, and this area holds significant amount, a lot of groundwater. So when we ask you, where can we find the groundwater? What's the name of the layer or the area under the ground that holds the groundwater? It is the aquifer. This area, it's made up of permeable sediments or rocks that holds the groundwater. Groundwater also flows into the well when people drill wells. It flows, okay, from the aquifer and it's pumped up to the surface. So a well is a way, drilling well is a way, it's making hole, okay, to the aquifer to extract the groundwater. So a groundwater is a very important source for people for fresh water. Okay? So an aquifer is not a lake under the ground. It is what layer of sediments that contains the groundwater. So an aquifer is a body of rock and sediment that saturated water is in it and around it. And water can move through it. As we said, permeable. It means water can move through it. It can be made of sand and gravel, sandstone, okay, and carbonate, these sediments, and other rocks. Each is made up of permeable material. Permeable again means water can move through it, okay? Now, as we said also, precipitation helps replace groundwater drawn out of wells. As you know, when people extract groundwater through wells, this groundwater should be replaced in order to stay available under the ground in the aquifer. So how does groundwater can be replaced? By precipitation every winter. So precipitation like rain, like melted snow, they seep down into the soil and they flow down and down to reach the aquifer and to be stored there. But what happens in case of drought, in case of less rainfall? Less groundwater will be replaced, right? Because groundwater depends on the precipitation. The amount of groundwater depends on precipitation. So if we have less rainfall, less precipitation, so less groundwater is replaced and the water level in the well drops. And if the level drops too low, a well runs dry. Okay? A very important note you have to know, students, about the groundwater. A groundwater in the aquifers, it fills the spaces between the rocks and within the rocks. Okay, this provides support for the upper layers. As we talk here, there are many layers under the ground. Aquifer layer, above it there are other layers. Okay, in the aquifer where groundwater is filling the spaces between the rocks and the sediments and within the rocks, this provides like support for the rocks and the soil layers above it, above the aquifer. It means that groundwater is very important for the stability of the land, for the support of the land. But what will happen in case if water is removed from the aquifer more than it is replaced or faster than it can be replaced? Yani people, they are taking groundwater, but the amount replaced is less or slowly. Do you know what would happen? What will happen? There will be spaces because the groundwater is not replaced in the same amount it's taken. So there will be spaces between the rocks, okay? There will be spaces, okay? And these spaces cause the upper layers or the overlying rocks and soil layers to be not supported well. This will cause these layers to come down because of the spaces in the aquifer, and this will result in the ground will collapse. Okay? When the ground collapses, this will create sinkhole on the on the surface of the land. So again, aquifer, it's an area with rocks, with sandstone, with sediments that hold water, groundwater. If this groundwater, it is not replaced properly or the amount taken more than the amount replaced, this creates spaces in the aquifer, and this causes the layers of rocks and soil above the aquifer to be not supported, to come down, and therefore the land collapses and a sinkhole will be formed because of the lack of sufficient support from below, from the aquifer. Okay, that's all about the groundwater. It is a very easy part. Now we are going to speak about water pollution. Let's speak now about water pollution. Let's speak about the causes of water pollution. Okay, so this part, as you remember, we discussed the definition of water pollution, and we also identified the sources of the water pollution. Okay, so human activities, as you know, most environmental problems are caused by human activities nowadays. Most pollution is caused by human activities. So human activities increase the amount of pollutants in the earth's water. And many types of pollution have negative impacts that are not beneficial to humans, such as polluted drinking water. Now, what is water pollution? Water pollution is the contamination of water bodies. Contamination of water means the water becomes with harmful substances. It means the water is holding harmful substances, contains toxins, contain pollutants. This is the meaning of contamination. And water bodies means lakes, rivers, oceans, aquifers, and groundwater. So water pollution is what is the contamination of water bodies like lakes, rivers, and streams and aquifers. Now let's discuss or let's speak about the sources, the causes of water pollution. This part is also very easy. We have an idea about it from the previous lesson. The first cause, the first source of water pollution is the agricultural fertilizers. As you know, in farms, farmers, they are using nowadays too much pesticides, herbicides, and synthetic fertilizers. These chemical substances are taken with runoff, okay? Don't forget that runoff means the water that flows over the land, okay? During rainy days, so this water takes with it from farms these chemical substances, these pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, and take these substances to rivers, to lakes, to streams. This will disturb the balance of the nutrients in lakes and seas and oceans, and this will affect the aquatic organisms that live in rivers and streams and other water bodies. Okay, so the first source of water pollution is the agricultural fertilizers. Okay, the second cause is industrial wastes. Industrial wastes are sources of water pollution. Factories, factories, they get rid of their wastes, of their industrial wastes, where at the sea, in the rivers, in the lakes. So these industrial wastes are very harmful because they contain chemical substances, toxic chemicals that harm also the aquatic organisms like fish. Okay, so till now we learned two sources of water pollution. The first one was agricultural fertilizers. The second cause is the industrial waste that come from factories and industry. Okay, now the third cause of water pollution is the runoff from urban areas or urban runoff. As you know, urban areas, these areas where people go to the sites of the cities and build their houses. And we talk that urbanization has negative impacts on the environment. One of these negative impacts is causing water pollution. How? Because runoff in these urban areas carries with it or contains, do you see the orange arrows? It contains many pollutants like pesticides and fertilizers, like gasoline, like oil from vehicles, like sediments, like, okay? So all these chemical or toxic or maybe hazardous waste, they are taken within runoff, okay, and all will go to rivers and seas and will affect what the quality of the surface water. It will cause contamination of the surface water. So urban runoff contains pesticides and fertilizer from lawns or from farms, oil and gasoline from vehicles like cars, bus, trucks, bacteria and viruses from waste or from landfills, okay? And all of these pollutants cause water pollution when they are carried by the runoff, okay? The fourth source of pollution is runoff from mines or from mined lands. As we talked before, mining activities have negative impacts on the environment, many negative impacts. One of these negative impacts is the pollution of the surface water or the groundwater also. How does this happen? Runoff or during winter or during rainy days, water flows on the surface of the land and carries within it from the mining lands or from the mined land, it carries with it acidic substances from mining areas. And okay, and it also can carry metals from the mined land. So these acidic substances and these metals are carried by runoff to the rivers and to the streams and to the water bodies. And all of these substances are harmful to aquatic organisms that will affect their survival and this will affect their growth and their reproduction. So till now we learned many sources of water pollution. The first one was agricultural fertilizer. Second one was industrial waste. Third one, runoff from urban areas. Fourth one, which is now the runoff from mines. Now the fifth one, number 5, is runoff from construction sites. As you see here in this picture, here is a construction area, And as you know, people, they don't stop buildings, right? Building activities or building houses or building malls. All these activities, okay, they, as we see here, there is gravel, sand, and sandstone, and many sediments are found in construction sites. Like, what will happen in case of runoff? Okay, when water flows on the surface, on the land, on the surface of the land, it carries with it part, or it carries with it extra sediments from the construction sites. These sediments, when they go to rivers or to sea or to streams or to ocean, they make the water cloudy and turbid and not clear. Okay, so this will reduce the amount of sunlight available for photosynthetic organisms that live in water. Yani we have plants that live in water, and as you know, plants cannot live without sunlight. So sunlight is required for these aquatic plants. Okay, so these sediments that go from construct that come from construction sites and go to water bodies, they reduce the amount of sunlight that is available for photosynthetic organisms. Okay, and the last source of water pollution is the oil spills. Do you observe this picture? This is a huge ship. People on it, they are getting rid of the oil at the sea. And you know that the oil is a hazardous waste, right? So many ships letting out the unwanted oil at the sea. And this is so dangerous for the water. And water will be what? Contaminated. And this will expose aquatic organisms to toxic chemicals, because oil is made up of chemical substances and it is a hazardous waste. So when oil covers the surface of the water also, it reduces the amount of oxygen in the water. So it's a negative activity by a human on the water. So it's, as you know, water, yani oil floats on water, so it reduces the amount of oxygen in the water. Okay, so these are the causes of water pollution: agricultural fertilizers, industrial wastes, urban runoff, runoff from mines, runoff from construction of sites, and finally oil spills. All these are the main sources of water pollution. And you can click on the link to watch the video about water pollution. So we can, here we have, it's uploaded on the resource document, so you can watch it again. This video speaks about water pollution. Still, we have the last part of the lesson, which is about ocean pollution. Okay, this part is so similar to the previous part. It speaks also about pollution at ocean. We are going in this part, or we already learned the definition of ocean pollution, and we learned the human activities. How do they change the Earth's ocean water through pollution? Okay, let's see together. Okay, ocean pollution. As you see here, there are many wastes that are thrown by a human here. This is like a negative activity on the ocean. It affects the quality of the water. It affects the living things, the aquatic organisms that live in water. Ocean pollution is what? It's any harm to physical, like this one, the view, okay, the appearance, chemical, the chemical substances within the water, and it may cause the water to be with many toxins, many chemicals, or biological health of the ocean. So harming to biological health, it's harming to the living things that live at the ocean. Okay, sometimes ocean pollution comes from natural source, like volcanic eruption. It causes the substances that are erupted or that are released by the volcano. They are taken to oceans and cause what? Pollution. But mostly, more often, human activities are the main cause of the ocean pollution. Let's see together the sources of ocean pollution. If we look at this pie chart, we can see different percentage of different activities or different sources of water of ocean pollution. We can observe that 30% comes from shipping or offshore mining activity. Offshore, it's like the beach, okay, the area beside the line beside the ocean. So 30% it is from shipping, from spilling oil, 12, with the one which is the offshore mining and drilling from resources. Okay, so these 13 are what causes of water. What's about the other percentage? The other all percentage runoff from land, airborne pollutants that originate on the land, and dumping trash directly into the ocean. These are all they are all come from the land, right? They all come from the land and reach the ocean and cause its pollution. Land-based pollution includes garbage, hazardous waste, and fertilizers. These come from the land and go to the ocean. Also, airborne pollution, such as emissions from power plants or cars. You know that they release chemical substances to the air, and the air carry it. These substances deposit at the ocean by gravity, so they will be taken. Their source is from the land, and they will be taken to the ocean. Okay, so most of ocean pollution, the sources are from the land, from human activities on the land. Okay, like runoff from the land that includes fertilizers, hazardous waste, sediments, garbage. Okay, and from the air of the land, these chemical substances will like fall down into the ocean and cause its pollution. Now let's see together how do humans pollute Earth's water? What are the sources or the things, okay, or the substances that cause the ocean pollution? The most of wastes are solid wastes, okay. These wastes like plastics, like plastic bags, plastic bottles, they are mostly thrown at the ocean, and are very dangerous for aquatic organisms. So solid wastes are substances that are main cause يعني, of water pollution. They cause water pollution. Trash including plastic bottles and bags and foam containers causes problems for marine or aquatic organisms. How? Many birds, as you see here, fish or other animals become entangled in the plastic or mistake it for food. Look here, this turtle, it thought that this is food. So this is so dangerous for aquatic animals because most of them they become entangled in plastic. Look, the plastic is on its body. They become entangled within plastic. Okay, so solid waste are very dangerous. They affect the water. They affect the aquatic organisms that live in water and cause pollution. Let's speak more about solid wastes. Some of plastics becomes trapped in the gyre. What do you mean by the gyre? The gyre, it is, or gyres are circular currents in the ocean surface. This is like normal phenomena, that there are circular currents on the surface of the ocean. throwing more and more and more and more plastic to the ocean. This will cause these plastic wastes and other wastes from the land to be part of this gyre, right? Look at this picture, you can observe they are like part of the circular motion. So they trapped in the gyre. These waste from the land, they trapped in the gyre. Example, the Great Pacific Gyre. Okay, these circular motions in the Pacific Ocean, they has collected so much plastics and other debris. What do you mean by debris? Debris, it means litter or waste that end in an ocean. They originate, or it originates from land-based activities. So it's so harmful to the ocean. So these natural gyres or currents on the surface of the ocean, because of too much plastics and too much of debris or other waste, these gyres now they are holding or they are within many solid wastes. Okay. Okay, the Great Pacific Gyre, as we said, it has collected so much plastics and other debris. Portion of it has been dubbed or named the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Patch like an area. So the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, an area of large or great solid wastes where in the Pacific Ocean within the Pacific Gyre. So this is now named Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It holds too much plastics and too much other wastes. Okay, so the first pollutant that comes from the land are solid wastes that affect the living things like animals. Okay, they will be entangled in plastics and they think that it's food, and by mistake they eat it and harm themselves, and many animals yani, are killed nowadays because of throwing of these wastes. Okay, and it also affects the ocean natural gyres. They become full of wastes. Okay, full of plastics and other debris or other wastes. The second cause or the second source, okay, that causes pollution, we have excess sediments. You know the meaning of sediments. Excess means extra or over. Sediments like soil, sand, gravel, these substances, the matter that settles at the bottom of water. Do you know that extra sediments, when they go to ocean, this will affect the living things at the ocean? Let's see how. Large amount of land-based sediment wash into oceans. Some erosion is natural. Okay, sometimes erosion of sediment is natural. Some is caused by a human. How? When a human cut down trees near rivers and ocean shoreline, this is the shoreline, okay, like, or the beach or the area where the land is close to the ocean. Cutting of these trees in this area, this causes the soil to be eroded, right? So when humans cut down trees near rivers and ocean shoreline, the sediments erode. Then what's the effect or the negative impact of these sediments that will go to the ocean? Excess sediment in the ocean can block light from reaching its normal depth. Okay, they block, look, they make like a layer and they block enough light, sunlight to reach their normal depth. And as we mentioned in the previous part, that many plants that live in water depends on the sunlight for photosynthesis, and many other photosynthetic organisms, they require sunlight. So these sediments, they like reduce the amount of sunlight that has to enter the water for the photosynthetic organisms or photosynthetic plants. Okay, so there are two kind of or two things that pollute the ocean's water: the solid wastes, the excess sediments, and now third one, okay, is the excess in nutrients. Excess in nutrients, what do you mean by excess in nutrients? Excess in nutrients, when they go to what to ocean, they affect negatively the water and the animals or the living things that live in water. Let's see how. Algae, what do we mean by algae? These are photosynthetic simple plants that live in aquatic environment. Look at it, they live on water. These algae, okay, they need what? Nitrogen and phosphorus. These are nutrients to survive and grow. Okay, so when these nutrients are available for these uh, algae, this will help them to survive and grow more. But pollution from excess nutrients is beneficial to algae. It means fertilizers from farms carry يعني most of the nitrogen and phosphorus. These nutrients, most of these come from farms through runoff, okay, from fertilizers. When they reach the ocean, this algae, it is using this phosphorus and nitrogen to grow more and more. So excess nutrients cause this algae to grow faster and to reproduce more and to be more and more. Okay, so this one, excess nutrients, excess phosphorus and nitrogen, they cause explosion in algal population. So algal population will increase too much because of the increasing of these nutrients. Do you think that is it beneficial or is it an advantage for the ocean? No, because too much algae will cause algal blooms. Algal blooms occur when algae grow and reproduce in large numbers. طب how does this affect the water? How does this affect the environment if these algae they grow by يعني grow too much, or when they grow more and more on the surface of the ocean or on the surface of the water body? So this algal blooms, it is when algae grow and reproduce in large number. Okay, so growth of algae in large numbers causes algal blooms. Algal blooms means we have excess or extra growth of algae at the ocean. Now, algal blooms can cause water to appear red, green, brown, or even glow at night. So algal bloom, it's the results of overgrowth, of excess growth of algae at the ocean. Why they grow more and more? Because of the excess in nutrients. More phosphorus and more more phosphorus and more nitrogen, they cause the algal bloom. Okay, this algal bloom can cause water to appear red or green or brown, or some kinds cause the water to be like a glowing. These are called the glowing algae or algae. Okay, like, do you think that this is good for the environment? Is it good for extra or overgrowing of algae? No, it's not. Algal blooms have negative impacts on the environment. They have negative impact on the environment. Why? What do they do when there is a lot of algae grow on the surface of the ocean? This will block sunlight from reaching other organisms that need sunlight for photosynthesis, because there is a lot of algae that grow on the surface. It also causes a depletion or decreasing of oxygen level in the water. So they like a barrier for oxygen. Okay, and these also algae that make algal blooms when they grow yani, quickly, because of these nutrients, excess nutrients, they may secrete toxins into water and may cause the aquatic organisms or the aquatic animals. But where do nitrates and phosphorus in ocean come from? As we said, they come from the land-based fertilizers that wash into the ocean by runoff. So again, we have many substances or many pollutants that cause water pollution. These pollutants include solid wastes. Then we spoke about the excess sediments, and now the excess in nutrients will cause algae to grow rapidly and quickly, and overgrowing and excess growing of the algae cause formation of the algal bloom at the ocean. Algal bloom prevents enough sunlight to reach photosynthetic organisms. It also causes decreasing in oxygen level in water, and they also may secrete toxins into the water and harm aquatic organisms. This is how algal blooms look like. Okay, that's all for week 6. That's what we learned during week 6. I hope you understood everything. Please study well, stay at your home, study every day. All the documents are uploaded on the resource document, so you can download it to your laptop and to study well. Thank you for listening. Please study well and stay at your home.